Hey crew, it's Pitt and I'm back with some more Esoterica. Today we are diving back into the works of Carl Jung. This is Mysterium Coniunctionis. We are reading aloud and discussing as we go along the various points that are brought to light by the text. It is not the format for everyone, but people do find value in it, so you are more than welcome to tag along as we continue our exploration. Before we begin, however, if you are unfamiliar with me, any of my unconventional beliefs, or if at any point in time I lose you in terminology, there will be several playlists linked in the corner above, in the box down below, along with the original source material, the link from my book where I teach you to do magic responsibly, and the direct link from consultations so that you can get a better understanding of who I am and why I say the things that I do. With that being said, we are going to dive into a tiny chapter today. There's only 6 pages, and the next one is long, so we will not be diving into that quite yet. And so we will continue our exploration with Chapter 2, Part 2, The Scintilla. 42. This point is identical with the scintilla. Footnote 55. Footnote 55 is, Bousset says, the Gnostics believe that human beings, or at any rate some human beings, carry within them, from the beginning, a higher element deriving from the world of light, which enables them to rise above the world of the seven into the upper world of light, where dwell the unknown Father and Heavenly Mother. This is confirmation bias. This is going to be confirming something that I already believe. There are 7 internal lights, right? Those internal lights I have described in the book. They are represented right here, and there is one extra that is surrounding and encapsulating, made by these. That is what this is talking about. Enable them to rise above the world of the 7 into the upper world of the light, where dwell the unknown Father and the Heavenly Mother. That is in accordance with what I already believe, so I am acknowledging confirmation bias, but this is a confirmation of something that I already believe from an outside source that I had no reference to when I came to my conclusion. Identical with the scintilla, the little soul spark of Master Eckhart. Footnote 56. Footnote 56 says, Meerpol, Meister Eckhart's Leinweinschuffelking. I don't speak German. We find it already in the teachings of Saturnius. Footnote 57. Irenaeus, the pneumatokai have in them a little bit of the pleroma. See the teachings of Saturnilios and Hippolytus Elenchios. Similarly, Heraclitus, the physicist, is said to have conceived the soul as a spark of stellar essence. Footnote 58. Macrobius, Insomnium Scipionis. Hippolytus says that in the doctrine of the Sethians, the darkness held the brightness and the spark of light in thrall. Footnote 59. 59 is Elenchios. Now I'm going to point out here that again, this is something that aligns with what I already believe. I'm going to post up here the Divine and the Trinity explained, but for this is an explanation of that, right? God was the void, became creation. The way of doing that was by becoming light, that point that penetrates the darkness. And so held the brightness and the spark of light in thrall would be inside of the void, and that is an understandable interpretation, even though it is not necessarily correct, right? It is not held in thrall. That is the wrong way of looking at it. But it is definitely interacting with, right? The infinitesimal point has penetrated into the void and created creation. That would be the spark, the scintilla of creation, God's will going into motion. Not necessarily the part that is separated into you. That would be the soul spark, right? The part that makes the decisions for the 5D navigation device. That would be the soul spark. The other part would be the spirit in motion. This is really describing the spirit more than the soul. And that this smallest of sparks was finally mingled in the dark waters below. That is footnote 60 and 61. This 60. This idea occurs in alchemy in numerous variations, and the king swimming in the sea, crying with a loud voice, "Whosoever shall deliver me shall have a great reward," Likewise, Aurora Consurgens, who is the man that liveth, knowing and understanding, to deliver my soul from the land of hell, and beginning of chapter 8. I will take the opportunity to remind you that hell is not a physical location. There is no lake of burning fire waiting to burn your soul forever. That is a misconception that you should investigate if that is your belief. Now also, right, there is the waters above and the waters below. This is another thing that is heavily misunderstood. There is no separation except through relativity. The ground is relatively thicker than the air. Relatively. The waters below would be the literal waters, including the air that we are breathing. The air above would be the separation from space, or the waters above would be space, the waters below would be the liquid, and the air in between would be the separation of those. And so the waters above and the waters below is definitely something that is commonly misassigned. Much like the Logos, it is not understood at all. Simon Magus, footnote 62, Transformation Symbolism in the Mass. Simon Magus likewise teaches that in semen and milk there is a very small spark which increases and becomes a power, boundless and immutable. 63 and 64. 63 is Ion, a parallel in Francis G. Wicks, The Inner World of Man. The other one is Lenchos. Okay, so this is kind of true, right? In a way, right? Semen definitely contains the very small spark of creation. It is a representative of the infinitesimal spark that infiltrates the void and starts creation. It is a one-for-one comparison. And it's not the same thing, but it is a very good comparison between creation beginning and life starting. That is true. Milk contains life, right? It is a food that we can consume and make ourselves more. It does not start life, therefore it doesn't contain the small spark of creation, but it is something that you can assimilate into yourself. So it is at least life-giving, and it is understandable why they would make that mistake. Right? It even kind of resembles, if that's what you're looking for, the two fluids would resemble each other. Not very well, and you have to be looking for that comparison, but yeah. So, 43. Alchemy, too, has its doctrine of the scintilla. In the first place, it is the fiery center of the earth where the four elements project their seed in ceaseless movement. For all things have their origin in this source, and nothing in the world is born save from this source. Right now, that would be the creative spark, not necessarily the fiery center of the earth. The fiery center of the earth is heated by the spark, right? The sun, he penetrates and heats the earth, and that is what keeps our core in its molten state. I know that goes against the current understanding of physics, but that's nothing unusual over here. Physics has a whole lot wrong. In the center dwells the Archaeus, the servant of nature, whom Paracelsus also calls Vulcan, identifying him with Adek, the great man. Footnote 65. Footnote 65 is Paracelsus, the physician, Paracelsus as a spiritual phenomenon. The Archaeus, the creative center of the earth, is hermaphroditic like Protanthropos, as is clear from the epilogue of the Novum Lumum of Syndivigus. When a man is illuminated by the light of nature, the mist vanishes from his eyes, and without difficulty he may behold the point of our magnet, which corresponds to both centers of the rays, that is, those of the sun and the earth. When man is illuminated by the light of nature, this is meditative. When a man is illuminated by the light of nature, is not talking about the sun, right? And the mist vanishes from his eyes is seeing into the spiritual realm clearly. Without difficulty, he may behold the point of our magnet is literally seeing the forces of creation as I talk about, right? That is my aphantasia revelation to myself, is that I have been seeing that the whole time without the understanding that that's what it was. To me, it looked like static. It was constantly moving, no real form. But that's because it was the eddies, right? These ripples and magnetics affecting each other, so it didn't really look like ripples. But I've been able to clarify that using my hands in a way that was kind of remarkable to me. And so that is a revelation that I've had. I knew that was kind of what I was doing in the spiritual state when I opened my eyes and I see, right? When I flex the third eye and release the spiritual oil, and I can see into the spiritual realm, removing that mist from my eyes. I could see that, right? It turns out I could do it all the time if I close my eyes. And so that was something new for me, but it is a direct correlation, again, confirmation bias for something that I already talk about quite often. This cryptic sentence is elucidated by the following example. When you place a 12-year-old boy side by side with a girl of the same age and dressed the same, you cannot distinguish between them. But take their clothes off and the difference will become apparent. Right. I don't think that that is what is being said here. I really don't, right? All right, let's look at the footnote. 66 is, the motif of undressing goes back to the Song of Songs. I am not surprised to see a biblical reference to seeing children unclothed. The keepers on the walls took away my veil from me. That is not a one-to-one correlation. And 5.3, I have put off my coat, how shall I put it on? The undressing symbolizes the extraction of the soul. I did not do a full exploration of Song of Songs, so I'm not going to try to act like I did and talk about it as if I know. The last time I read it was before I took off the lenses. Right, if that is unfamiliar to you, the Bible study is the way to go. Right, there are lenses of predestination that need to be taken off before you read that particular book. This does not appear to be an explanation of this. I believe that what I said is a better explanation of this. This is him not understanding what was being said, and they're trying to understand it, right? This is not the correct understanding. Right? This is not even talking about removing your clothes, right? This is not at all referring to that. Now, I don't care if it is elucidated by the same guy. If it was elucidated by Syndivigus, he didn't understand what he was saying either, right? When you place a 12-year-old boy side by side with a girl of the same age and dressed the same, you cannot distinguish between them, is kind of true, but it is really not. Right? Before puberty sets in, there are some similarities, but it is still fairly apparent. Right? It really is. The bone structure is different. The way that they carry themselves is different. Now, I understand the sentiment that is being relayed. I do not believe it is right at all. According to this, the center consists in a conjunction of male and female. That is true, right? But this is not. Yeah. This is confirmed in a text by Abraham Eleazar, 68. I have subjected this text to a detailed interpretation in chapter 5. We will probably get to it, where the arcane substance laments being in the state of negredo. Through Kim, 69, Kim, Ham, means the blackness. The Egyptian is the same as the Ethiopian. Okay, so that is not true. The Egyptians and the Ethiopians are two distinct peoples. There is no real reason to believe that the son of Noah, I'm definitely putting quotations on that because that entire story is stolen from the Sumerians, but there is no reason to believe that the sons of Noah were three distinct colors. And there is no reason to believe that one of them was white, one of them was brown, and one of them was black. None at all. That is a racist overtone that people have put upon it to explain things that have no explanation. They are trying to fit into a box that does not contain the truth. Right? There were multiple peoples that survived the last flood, not just a single person and his children. It was definitely not Noah in the slightest, right? These three sons that are referenced by the same names in an older text than anything existent that records Noah. It was Utapishtanim. That was his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. They even went in the same directions after the flood. and they were not different colors either. It is more likely, if the story of Noah were true, that they settled in the same region and were the same peoples, right? And so one of them probably went around to Egypt, yes. One of them probably went to Saudi Arabia or Babylonia, yes. And then the other one probably stayed around Assyria, yes. And those three, in three different directions, fostered three different peoples who were related, but definitely antagonistic to each other. That is a better explanation than that they were three separate colors, and that one of them went above the Caucasus Mountains and became the Caucasians, and the other one stayed in the Middle East and they became the Middle Easterners, and then some of them went below into Africa and they became all of the Africans. I mean, that is a racist way of looking at it. There is no way around that, right? I believe that God made everybody in the way that they are, and there was no one chosen people. There are too many stories of the flood and people surviving it to place all of your eggs into the one basket of Noah. There are many reasons to doubt the entirety of Genesis. Do so, right? At least question it. Go back. If you don't want to read it for yourself, go back and listen to me read it to you and talk about these contradictions, because there are definite contradictions to the story. It does not make sense in the slightest. And if you want to place your faith in something that does not make sense, I cannot stop you. But if you are seeking knowledge, do not look for it in Genesis. Through Chem, the Egyptian, I must pass. Noah must wash me in the deepest sea, that my blackness may depart. So Noah is going to wash his kid, right? That's what you're saying here. Noah is going to wash me, his kid, right? Or his descendant. Well, he's already gone. He can't wash you from shit. He was never a redeemer of anyone, right? And he never even tried to be. Right? Noah was probably the best out of all of the people that were recorded. He's the only one did anything slightly right, and then they shit upon him right after the flood. I mean, he gets drunk and passes out naked. Like, that whole story's pretty wild, too. I mean, you should definitely check that one out in Genesis. I must be fixed to this black cross, and must be cleansed therefrom with wretchedness and vinegar, and made white, that my heart may shine like a carbuncle, and the old Adam come forth from me again. O Adam Kadmon, how beautiful art thou! Like Kedar I am black henceforth, how long? O come my Meshech. 70. Meshech means mixed drink. Oh, so come my mixed drink and disrobe me. That sounds like Noah, doesn't it? That mine inner beauty may be revealed. O Shulamite, afflicted within and without, the watchman of the great city will find thee and wound thee, and rob thee of thy garments, and take away thy veil. Who then will lead me out from Edom, from thy stout wall? Yet shall I be blissful again when I am delivered from the poison wherewith I am accursed, and my inmost seed and first birth comes forth? For its father is the sun, and its mother is the moon. 71. 71 says, Uraltes Chemicus work. This is supposed to be the book of Abraham the Jew, which plays a great role in the biography of Nicholas Flamel. This was something created. It was not something existent. We do not have any writing from Abraham at all. We don't have any writing from Moses, much less from Abraham. And all of this is an allegory, but it's not necessarily a good one, right? It doesn't really have anything to do with the scintilla at all. This is a complete misunderstanding of the entire intention of that word and what it means. Right? It has nothing to do with disrobing. Nothing at all. It is the creative spark. That's what the scintilla is. It is the part that makes creation. It is the logos in motion. That's the scintilla. Right? I am black. Please cleanse me. O Shulamite, afflicted within and without, the watchmen of the great city find thee and wound thee, and rob thee of thy garments, and take away thy veil. Who then will lead me out from Edom, from thy stout? Like, yeah, this is just, no. 44. It is clear from this text that the hidden thing, the invisible center, is Adam Kadmon, the original man of Jewish Gnosis. Well, that is because the text is wrong, right? The text is not correct. The text is not a literal thing to be taken at all. It is at best an allegory, and it's not even a really good one at that. Right? It really does not fit for a way that you should arrange your life at all, in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. There are many problems with it. The entirety of the Jewish religion is fundamentally broken. There is no repair of that. Anything built upon that is also going to be fundamentally broken. They do not have the understanding of anything that I talk about in here. They have not had the products therefrom, right? Not in any positive manner anyway. And this hidden thing is absolutely not the original man, right? The original man is the concept of God wanted a man. Yeah, okay, fine. But there is not this archetypal man that you are the reflection of in physicality out there. Okay? Jewish Gnosis is not knowing anything. It is he who laments the prisons of the darkness. Footnote 72. A manuscript gives another version of this motif. There was a certain man who was of use for nothing and could not be kept under guard. For he broke out of all prisons, nay more, he made light of all punishments. Yet a certain simple, humble, and sincere man was found, who well understood his nature, and counseled that he be deprived of all his garments, and made naked. According to the text, the undressing signifies putrefaction. For the prison of the gates of brass and bar of iron in the Babylonian captivity. Similarly, the Carmina Heliodori, the Negretto, is called a wall like the blackness of darkness, or a robe of destruction. This goes back to the ancient idea of body sign, the corpus hermeticum. But first you must tear off this garment which you wear, this cloak of darkness, this web of ignorance, this prop of evil, this bond of corruption, this living death, this conscious corpse, this tomb you carry about with you. And see, that is exactly the wrong way of looking about it. In the seeking of enlightenment, you will do what is being said here, right? You will release who you are from the body, the temple. It is not a tomb. Your soul does not die when your body does. This is not a tomb. This is not a prison. This flesh was given to you directly by the Creator of eternity. Everything about your life is meant to be intentional. You may not live it that way, but it is meant to be that way. You are here for an experience, not for a punishment. And there is no eternal punishment awaiting you on the other side of that. That is a creation of the New Testament. It is not contained in the Old Testament. It is a brand new thing created out of whole cloth for no reason other than to keep people scared. I mean, your body is not a prison. You are not imprisoned on this planet. You can leave it. Right? This experience is entirely voluntary. Now, that is my understanding of it. Right? The eternal is always going to be in the realm of speculation. But my understanding of it has come through divine revelation of a spiritual experience that I could not give myself. And it appears to be true if you actually look at it without the glasses that have been placed upon you of predestination and condemnation. God's not here to condemn you. The Negretto is also represented as the garment of darkness. He shall not deride my garment, and the parable of the Aureum Caecellum Redivium of Madatantus. Her garments, which were rancid, ill-savoured, and poisonous, lay at her feet, whither she had cast them, and at length she broke forth in these words, I have put off my coat, how shall I put it on? From the Song of Songs. And so it is exceptionally important to understand that this is not a prison planet. It is vital to the works that are described, the very thing that he is searching for, that you understand that. If you believe that this is a prison planet, your intentionality in manifestation will be wrong every time. That is a fundamental misunderstanding of reality. If you align yourself in that way, I cannot stop you. I am not even here to try to stop you. I am here to advise you against it. It is a bad idea to look at this as a prison in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. It is not. Prisons of the darkness, and who is personified by the black Shulamite of the Song of Songs. He is the product of the conjunction of sun and moon. The scintillae often appear as gold and silver and are found in multiple forms in the earth. Footnote 73. Mylius, similarly Morenius, the transmute metallica. They are then called oculi piscium, fish's eyes. Footnote 74. Morenius and Legnius, harmonia chemica. Bear in mind, you are not meant to take the eyes from fish. The fish's eyes are frequently mentioned by the authors, probably first by Morenius Romanus, footnote 75. They are bubbles of steam that rise up in the solution. And the Tractus Aristiellus, 76. Theatrica chemicum, unto the earth shines like fish's eyes. That would be because they are reflective, right? The fish's eyes really do look different if you look at them. It's because they have the extra lens. Tractus Aristiolus, and then by many later ones. Footnote 77. Granular bodies like fish's eyes. Aquarium sapentium. At the beginning, like red grains, and when they coagulate, like fish's eyes. Mylius. The same in Penotus, regulaet canons, when they shine in it like fish's eyes. Ventura, de rationale confic lap. In Manger, there is a symbol ascribed to the philosopher Malus. Footnote 78. Bibliotheca Chemica, Malus, conjectured to be Magus, mentioned in Rusca as an Arabian author. Cf. the Spirit Mercurius. Philosopher Malus, which shows eyes in the stars and the clouds and the water and in the earth. Now, this would be that scintilla, the creative spark, is represented in the clouds, the waters, and the earth, fully, even in the stars, fully. And the caption says, "This stone is unto you and near you and above you and around you." And again, that agrees more with what I believe than what is being described in this book. 79. A free version of Rosinus ad Strat. The eyes indicate that the lapis is in the process of evolution and grows from these ubiquitous eyes. 80. Evidently, Dorn means the same thing when he says of the phoenix as the transforming substance. Its fledglings with their beaks pull out their mother's eyes. Ripley remarks that at the desiccation of the sea, a substance is left over that shines, like the fish's eye. 81. Opera. According to Dorn, the shining eye is the sun. 82. Physica Trismegisti. It does not look like we have anything until 89, which plunges the center of the eye into the heart of man, as if it were the secret of warmth and illumination. Again, that comports more with what I believe than what has been described in this book. In this chapter, anyway. The fish's eye is always open, like the eye of God. Again. Something of the sort must have been in the mind of the alchemist, as is evidenced by the fact that Arendaeus Orandus used as a motto for his edition of Nicholas Flamel the words of Zechariah 4:10. "And they shall rejoice, and see the plummet, Lepidium stanium, in the hand of Zorobabel. These are the 7 eyes of the Lord, that run to and fro from the whole earth." Again, there are 7 points inside of you. In addition to that, there are the 7 facets, which is probably what is being referred to here. I have a video talking about that. The 7 aspects of God. Firmicus Maternus may be referring to the latter passage when he says, "The sign of one profane sacrament is God from the rock." The other is the stone which God promised to send to strengthen the foundations of the promised Jerusalem. Christ is signified to us by the venerable stone, footnote 89. This reference is valid if the stone with 7 eyes is not taken as a keystone, but as the foundation stone of the temple. The stone with 7 eyes is going to be you. Right? The 7 internal chakras, which represent the 7 virtues and vices, exactly, that would be the 7 facets of God. Exactly, the 7 tones of intonation. Exactly, the 7 wavelengths of light. Exactly. Right? And so the stone with 7 eyes is not the keystone, but it is you, not what is being referenced. The reference is not valid. The first reference is to the lapis angularis, whose parallel in the Eastertide consecration of the fire is the silex, fire stone, from which the spark springs forth, the first collect for Easter Eve. O God, who, through thy Son, who is called the cornerstone, has brought the fire of thy light to the faithful, make holy for our future use this new fire struck from the fire stone. This, as far as I am aware, is not recorded in the Bible. Just as the one stone meant for the alchemist, the lapis, and this right here is a complete misinterpretation as well, right? Logos, the stone, can be taken for this. Christ, the person, cannot, and Christ was not the Logos. Again, I refer you to the Divine and the Trinity explained. Just as the one stone meant for the alchemist, the lapis, 90. What is said in Adam and Eve, paragraphs 568 below, about the Kabbalistic stone, and particularly about the stone as Malkuth. So the fish's eyes meant the 7 eyes, or the one eye of God, which is the sun. I, again, believe I have a better interpretation for that. The Egyptians held that the eye is the seat of the soul. For example, Osiris is hidden in the eye of Horus. 91. 91 is Campbell, the miraculous birth of King Amenhotep III, according to Plutarch. Isis and Osiris. Typhon, the wicked brother shadow of Osiris, wounded or tore out the eye of Horus, and this is to be interpreted as referring to the new moon. For the relation between the eye and chemia, see the important passage in Plutarch. Egypt, moreover, which has the blackest of soils, which they call by the same name as the black portion of the eye, chemia, and prepare it to a heart. And it is important to note that that black soil is only around the Nile. In alchemy, the eye is the colium, heaven. It is like an eye and a seeing of the soul, whereby the state of the soul and her intentions are ofttimes made known to us, and through its rays and the glance of heaven all things take form. Footnote 92. Steve, we have until 97. In Steve's view, which agrees with that of Marsilius Finicus, the colium is a virtus, indeed a certain perfect living being. No. Hence, the alchemists call their quinta essentia colium. The idea of a virtus is born out of the description of the Holy Ghost as an eye, a parallel to the invocation to Hermes. Hermes, the eye of heaven. The eye of God emits power and light. 97. Diodorus, Osiris means many-eyed, for in shedding his rays in every direction, surveys with many eyes. Likewise, the fish's eyes are tiny soul sparks from which the shining figure of the Phileus is put together. They correspond to the particles of light imprisoned in the dark physis, whose reconstitution was one of the chief aims of Gnosticism and Manichaeism. There is a similar nexus of ideas in the Siddhasila of Jainism. The Loka, world, is held in the middle of the Aloka, void, in the form of the trunk of a man, with Siddhasila at the top, in place where the head should be. This Scintilla is the abode of the omniscient souls and may be called the spiritual eye of the universe. This is just an anthropomorphication of a concept. It is not an actual person. 47. The eye, like the sun, is a symbol of us as well as an allegory of consciousness. Footnote 99. The eye is clarity of intellect. In alchemy, the scintillae are put together in the form of gold, soul. In the Gnostic systems, the atoms of light are reintegrated. Psychologically, this doctrine testifies to the personality or ego character of psychic complexes. Just as the distinguishing mark of the ego complex is consciousness, so it is possible that other unconscious complexes may possess, as splinter psyches, a certain luminosity of their own. Footnote 100. My complex theory and nature of the psyche. Okay, so the distinguishing mark of the ego complex is indeed consciousness, right? I think, therefore I am. That is, what separates us is the ability to cognate, not necessarily to think. The upper animals can think. They can be trained to do things. They do not think in a philosophical way that we know of, but they can think on a base level, right? The untrainable animals is pure instinct. The upper animals, they can think. For us, the fact that we can think and plan, the cognition part of that, is what sets us apart from the upper animals. And so this is that, right? The personality, the ego character is the part that makes the decisions in your body. It is the part that thinks about the things. And so this does fit. I mean, this unconscious complexes, that is the shadow side of the soul, that is giving in to the wrong impulses. I talk about that in the MBTI. Not as much as I could, because there is a whole nother side of the MBTI that has not even been dived into. The stack literally flips upside down, and the unconscious and the divine understanding are there, right? It is conscious, subconscious, unconscious, and divine understanding. All right. From these atoms is produced the monad, and the lapis in its various significations, in agreement with the teachings of Epicurus, who held that the concourse of atoms even produced God. I hold that that is exactly the wrong way of looking at it. Right? That was footnote 101. Yeah. Hippolytus, Lynch shows, and that from the concourse of atoms, both God and all of the elements came into being, and that in them were all animals and other things. Right? This is correct, except God was the initiator, right? Before the beginning, there was God, and God was infinite and without form, and then God decided to create and became the creation, becoming the beginning by deciding to limit himself into the creation. It is still beyond our scope to understand, but it is something definable. We can put a name upon the Spirit where we really can't upon God, because God is beyond even the Spirit, which is everything that we know. Every single thing in existence is the Spirit, right? God placed that in motion. He was not created from it. He was the initiator, not that which was initiated. That is an understanding, right? That is something that is in the realm of speculation, but it is barely in the realm of speculation for me, right? I do not hold that we created God at all. That is exactly the wrong way of looking at it. Like exactly the wrong way of looking at that. 48. In his chapter on knowledge, footnote 102, Speculativa Philosophia Theatrica Chemica, Dorn uses the concept of the scintillae in moral form. Let every man consider diligently in his heart what has been said above, and thus, little by little, he will come to see with his mental eyes a number of sparks shining day by day and more, and growing into such a great light that thereafter all things needful to him will be made known. This light is the light of nature, as Dorn says in his Philosophia Meditativa. Right? And again, right, this is true. Right? Now, whether that is the scintilla, right, that is the creative spark which is in all of us. Right? That would be this. Let every man consider diligently in his heart what has been said above, That is coming to the understanding of the one true law. That is an intrinsic understanding that you already hold, right? You don't want to be murdered. You don't want to be robbed from. You don't want to be lied to. You don't want to be cheated on. These are intrinsic things. They have been written in places, but they are things that you know for yourself if you do reflection. Do you want these things? No. Therefore, the law is. Right? That is what this is, diligently in your heart, what has been said above. I mean, not necessarily the things that have been written down. Some of those are pretty horrible. Right? But the one that is intrinsic to you, you should know. The God that you serve gives you your law. And so, in that it works. He will come to see with his mental eyes a number of sparks shining day by day. This is part of the meditative process of enlightenment. To me, this is going to be what we've already talked about, plus, right? The number of sparks shining day by day and more is more people aligning themselves in the proper way to get there, right? That may not be something that you necessarily see, but it is something that can be represented visually. Right, if you are seeking that particular information, it will be made available to you. You will literally see this. That is coming from someone who cannot literally see what he wants to. And so I'm letting you know that this is a thing that can happen. But it is not necessarily intrinsic to the process. The number of sparks shining day by day can also be allegorically you unfolding the flower, as we have described. Jung did the introduction to that work on purpose, and that was one of the best references that we have gone through. The golden flower is a very good reference. In that case, this would be you doing that in order to attain this, right? And it is indeed the light of nature. That I do fully agree with. That would be the internal light that reveals itself as the golden flower. Back to the text. What madness deludes you? For in you, and not proceeding from you, he wills all this to be found, which you seek outside you, and not within yourselves. Let's re-emphasize that. What madness deludes you? For in you, and not proceeding from you, he wills all this to be found, which you seek outside you, and not within yourselves? See the power in that? There is power in that. It is within you. Such is the vice of the common man, to despise everything his own and always lust after the strange. The light of men shineth in us, albeit dimly, and as though in darkness. Footnote 103. John 1:4. In him was life, and the life was the light of men, and the light shineth in the darkness. True, but it was not him, it was in him. It was in him, and it is in you as well. That is something that we have to stand upon. I mean, the light of men is not a man. It is not to be sought as proceeding from us, though it is in us and not of us. Yeah. 104. Footnote 104 is, if a man knows how to transmute things in the greater world, how much more shall he know how to do in the microcosm, that is, in himself? The same that he is able to do outside himself, if he but know that the greatest treasure of man dwells within him, and not without him. And I absolutely agree. That is what I wrote an entire book about. Not of us, but of whom, to whom it belongeth. Of him to whom it belongeth, who have deigned to make us his dwelling place. Hey, look, you have a temple. There is a individualized piece of the divine residing within that temple. He hath implanted that light in us, that we may see in its light the light of him who dwelleth in light inaccessible, and that we may excel his other creatures. In this especially we are made like unto him, in that he hath given us a spark of his light. Thus the truth is to be sought not in ourselves, but in the image of God, which is within us. All right, we will do the footnotes and we will come back. 105 and 106. 105 is God image in the sense both of a reflection and an archetype, and the other one is a reference to another book. All right, so That we may excel as other creatures, I do believe, fully. We are made like unto him, that's a problem, right? That is an anthropomorphication. That is one of those assumptions that we make. Now, I have been guilty of making that assumption myself, but we do not know what God looks like. We do not know that God looks like us. He could look like the angels, which looks a little bit like us, but he could look like a frog. He could look like a lizard. He could look like a dog. He could look like whatever. He could look like an entire planet. He could look like the vastness of space. We do not know, nor will we ever know fully and completely while in the mortal coil. That is an assumption that is made, and it is one of the main problems that we have with the control systems that are religion. Right? We are ascribing something that we don't know to be true. We assume that because we feel superior to all of the other creatures. We don't even know that to be true. I mean, it is entirely possible that the highest form of life on this planet is a dolphin. We don't know. Right? We guess, we make assumptions, but because they're not in houses, we say that they are less. But they have intelligence. They are able to think, probably even on a cognitive level. These are assumptions that we make. It is an assumption that we look like God or that God looks like us. We do not know that. Anything that is built upon that as a truth is fundamentally broken. Nobody knows that. If you have speculated about it, you probably have arrived to that conclusion, but it is not something that we can ever call a fact. That is vitally important. Anybody that tells you that they know for a fact what God looks like is a liar, and you should not listen to a liar. Now, that doesn't mean that there cannot be a presentation to you. Right? If there is a presentation to you, that does not mean that it is the true representation. It is simply what you can understand. Again, a problem with prophecy. 49. In Dorn's view, there is in man an invisible sun, which he identifies with the Archaeus. I agree with that. Right? 107 is the Archaeus in man naturally practices the chemic art. This agrees with Paracelsus and with me. Right? To me, this is going to be the spirit. Right? The invisible sun that you can seek is the flower that unfolds in the golden flower. If you sit in a dark room in a meditative state and you are properly aligned, this sun will reveal itself to you. It is a blinding light even in a darkened room. It is a thing. It looks like the sun. It is overpowering. This is true. Which he identifies with the Archaeus, right? And then says that the Archaeus is the part that practices the chemic art. That again would be the spirit, because what changes your full food into fuel? The Holy Spirit. What changes your breath into mobility? The Holy Spirit. What takes and assimilates into you the things that you absorb? The Holy Spirit. And so therefore this is indeed going to be the thing that does the chemic art. Right? This is in perfect alignment with what I already believe, even if he doesn't understand it. This sun is identical with the sun and the earth. In agreement with the passage from Nova Lumine, the invisible sun enkindles an elemental fire which consumes man's substance. Now, I don't disagree with this either, because it is intrinsic inside each and every one of us that this spark, this sun, exists. There is no reason to assume that it does not in the globe as well. The globe is in a state of existence. It is the first level of existence, but it is there. And so I do agree that it is there. I agree that it's going to be in all of the plants and all of the animals and even in the divine replicas that are above us, right? The entities and the angels. Consumes man's substance, that is footnote 108. Because man is engendered in corruption, his own substance pursues him with hatred. That is an assumption. There is no need to assume that there is hatred involved in any of it, right? Corruption is part of the process. You are not eternal. You will never be eternal as the physical corporeal temple. Right? This is indeed corrupted. It is dying right now. That is true for every single person on the planet, no matter how brand new they are. You will die. This is a guarantee. You will die. That's not necessarily spiritual corruption, right? But you are tempted, right? That's the reason for the amnesia, so that you can have the experience of the temptation. Engendered in corruption is not quite right, right? That is that victim mentality, prison planet looking at things, and it is not correct. All right. Consumes man's substance and reduces his body to prima materia. It is also compared with salt or natural base element. And again, salt is going to be the representative of earth and the trinity of salt, mercury, and sulfur, which has in itself corruption and protection against corruption. This paradoxical aspect is borne out by a curious saying. Man is the bait wherein the spark struck by the flint, an example, Mercurius, and by the steel, footnote 109. Here, calibes means steel, but as calibus indivigi, it is an arcane substance which is secret salmiac. This is sal armoniacus, the dissolved stone. Elsewhere, Rulon says sal ammoniac is the star, so that would be an ammonia derivative. Or ammonia is going to be extremely basic. It would be able to take apart some of the stones, not all of them. Ammoniac is the star, says of miraculous aqua, that it is the best, which is extracted by the force of our calibes, which is found in the ram's belly. Before it is suitably cooked, it is a deadly poison. The ruler of Aries is Mars, iron, cf. Aries and Paracelsus. And by the steel. An example, heaven, seize upon the tender and show their power. Mercurius, let's see, footnote 110. Footnote 110, okay, that is just a reference. So, Mercurius as the flint is evidently thought here in his feminine chthonic form, and heaven stands for his masculine spiritual quintessence. That's weird because flint would be the part that strikes the spark. From the nuptial impact between the two, the spark is struck, and Archaeus, which is the corruptor of the body, just as the chemist is a corruptor of metals. This negative aspect of the scintilla is remarkable, but it agrees very well with the alchemist's less optimistic, medico-scientific view of the world. Footnote 111. Cf. The crime of the spirit. For them, the dark side of the world and of life had not been conquered, and this was the task they set themselves in their work. In their eyes, the fire point, the divine center in man, was something dangerous, a powerful poison which required very careful handling if it was to be changed into the panacea. The process of individuation, likewise, has its own specific dangers. Dorn expresses the standpoint of the alchemist in his fine saying, "There is nothing in nature that does not contain as much good as evil as good." Evil and good are both relative terms, not necessarily clearly definitive. Right? It is evil to murder somebody, but most of the other things are kind of shady. Yeah. We've already discussed that in some detail. The positive and negative are referred to as, right, but destruction can be positive as well. Your death is positive for other things, even if it's not necessarily for the meat suit, right? Even you as a soul going on somewhere else is a good thing. Death is not intrinsically evil. The same is true for most things, right? There is absolute evil, right? Giving or murder, rape, torture, things along those nature, that is evil. That is aligned with evil. There is no doubt about that. That's not what I'm talking about, right? There is no good contained in torturing somebody else. There is a lesson to learn there. God is learning the experience of being tortured, but that doesn't even make it good, right? It's just part of the experience. 50. In Kunrath, 113. Born in 1560, studied medicine, took his degree 1588 in Basel, and died in 1605 in Leipzig. In Kunrath, the scintilla is the same as the elixir. Now the elixir is well and truly called a shining splendor, or a perfect scintilla of him who alone is the mighty and strong. It is the true aqua permanens, eternally living. Footnote 114. Von Heilisken Chaos. Alright, so the elixir is well and truly called the shining splendor, the perfect scintilla of him who alone is mighty and strong, the true permanent water, the living water, eternally living. And that would be the spirit once again. The radical moisture is animated by a fiery spark of the world soul. For the Spirit of the Lord filleth the whole world. 115. Aurora consurgens. And again, the Spirit does indeed fill the whole world. It is the air around you, the earth you walk upon, and the physical corporeal in every single instance. He also speaks of a plurality of sparks. There are fiery sparks of the world soul, that is, of the light of nature, dispersed or scattered at God's command in and through the fabric of the great world, into all fruits of the elements, everywhere. Footnote 116. The filling of the world with Scintilla is probably a projection of the multiple luminosity of the unconscious. Or it's talking about the literal elements. And the light of nature would be that spark of the world soul. The fiery sparks of the world soul would be the spirit. And quite literally, all of the elements would be that spark. Every single one of them in each and every instance, where they're combined and where they are uncombined, would still be that spark, scattered at God's command in and through the fabric of the world in all of its fruits, everywhere. Again, I believe I have a better understanding. The scintilla is associated with the doctrine of anthropos. The sun of the great world is filled, animated, and impregnated with the fiery spark of Ruach Elohim, the spirit, breath, or wind, or blowing of the triune God, from the body, spirit, and soul of the world, or sulfur, salt, and mercury, which would be, right, fire, spirit, salt is earth, body, and mercury is soul, the part that makes the decisions. And the universal fiery spark of the light of nature. Footnote 117. Alright, we'll be back at 119. The fiery sparks of the world soul were already in the chaos. The prima materia at the beginning of the world again agrees with what I say. Kunrath rises to Gnostic heights when he exclaims, "And our Catholic Mercury, by virtue of his universal fiery spark of the light of nature, is beyond doubt Proteus, the sea god of the ancient pagan sages, who hath the key to the sea and power over all things, son of Oceanos and Tethys." 119. 119. There are numerous other synonyms for the scintilla. The sea god would not be a good appellation, right? It really wouldn't. Right, it's representative of, everything is a representative of, but to limit the creation into this one particular god who is the son of the ocean and the air, which kind of does make sense, right? It would be better if it was a representative of fire, right? If it was, I thought that Proteus was at least tangentially related to fire, but it's been a long time since my exploration of these particular gods, so but it wouldn't, like a sea god, it's understandable why they would think that, but it's not going to be right. Many centuries lie between Monimos and Kunrath. The teachings of Monimos were completely unknown in the Middle Ages. 120. They were preserved only in Hippolytus, whose Alinchos was not discovered until the middle of the 19th century on Mount Athos. The passage about the iota, from Matthew, in Archaeus, can hardly have given rise to a tradition. Were completely unknown in the Middle Ages, and yet Kunrath hits upon a very similar thoughts which can hardly be ascribed to tradition. And that is going to bring us to the end of Scintilla. Hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a somewhat difficult topic. I understand I have some unconventional beliefs, and I do have a tendency to step on toes when I relay those. It is not intentional, but it is not something I apologize for. I really do think that I have a better understanding of this than they did, and I know that sounds awfully prideful, but it is not my understanding. It was one that was given to me. It was one that I sought, and it came to me. And it might be a little bit heady to say, but I do believe that it fits better. I believe that even I might have explained it well enough to where it would make sense that it fits better. looking back through the lens of history with the accumulated knowledge of all things, right? We can look at Paracelsus and we can say, okay, he was trying. He may not have explained things exactly correctly, but he was trying. He was striving in the right direction, even. You can't say that with some of these others, right? You can't say that with Aleister Crowley. You can't say that with Eliphas Levi. You can't even say that with Agrippa. They were relaying something, but it was not true. Paracelsus appears to have been at least striving to do the right thing. But he didn't know anything about microscopes or telescopes or magnetics or gravity or physics or any of that, right? He was working off of base understanding on a very, very primal level. And so the speculation about how things works, it makes sense. We can understand, looking back, what he was trying to describe. You can go back to Plato. We have read through several of the works of Plato, and I don't remember which one it was, but in one of the works, we found chemistry being described. Like, physically the changing of the elements. It is described in his understanding of it as the 4 elements, but the way that he was talking about it was literally chemistry. Like, literally, like molecular chemistry, not just like alchemy where you're mixing these things together to see the results, but like base level, these 2 elemental things combined into water, right? And it was described fairly accurately. It was a very revealing thing that we found, but he wasn't working with our knowledge. They didn't have a microscope. He was still able to describe some things that are microscopic. Just because they didn't have the full understanding doesn't make them necessarily wrong. But if we have reached a greater understanding, then the greater understanding is the part that we should stand upon, right? We should not revert back to that there is a dome over the flat earth. That is a lesser understanding of how things work. We should not fall back on if they tie them to a chair and if they sink, they're a witch, right? We should not go back to a lesser understanding of things. What is in here is a lesser understanding to what I understand. Now, again, that can seem prideful, but it really does fit, right? When I see this and I'm like, this is what they were describing, they just didn't have the words for it. I mean, that's why we're doing this. That's why we're going through this. There is information here. There's good information here. But some of it's not. And the parts where they're making assumptions about God and what he looks like, that's irrelevant. Right? You can believe that if you want to, but it makes absolutely no difference what God actually looks like. None. You will not know until you get there. Now, I believe you will know when you get there, but who knows, right? We don't. Holding the difference between speculation and things that we know is important, but sifting through why we are speculating and taking things and being like, this is probably true, that's important as well. That's what I've done in here. That's what I do over here. That's what we are trying to do on scale. If you like what I'm doing over here, let me know down below. Give me a like, a share, a follow, throw me a comment whether you agree or disagree with anything that was stated. Put it in the box down below, and if it remains respectful, it gets to remain up. If you really like what I'm doing, hit me with that super thanks. Consider joining for a membership, picking up a copy of my book where I teach you to do magic responsibly and live responsibly, or directly consulting me for whatever you really like. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete just the way that you are. And this has been Fit State. Peace.